Welcome back to Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks content. My name is Levi, and we've got some interesting rumors revealed today, courtesy of Twitter. Gotta love Twitter, right? All these really kind of just random updates, but it's actually courtesy of Grant Cohn, who is the 49ers beat reporter on Twitter, and he was saying that he was just on a flight, and guess who else was on that flight? Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and Mike Macdonald. That's very interesting, right? The Seahawks' current head coach and the guy that he replaced and the GM who made the decision to make the replacement. So we have the details of this Pete Carroll flight revealed, and it has leading to some interesting rumors regarding Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. We're going to talk about all that right here on Seahawks Now. So if you don't want to miss any future updates, rumors, or breaking news content, make sure you hit that subscribe button right down below. It really helps the channel. And thank you so much, guys, for helping us reach 100 subscribers within our first month on YouTube. It is awesome seeing the growth of this fan base. The Seahawks have the best fan base, I believe, in the entire NFL, and I love talking football with all of you guys. All right, guys, now let's jump into the content. Pete Carroll was on a flight with Mike Macdonald and John Schneider, and Grant Cohn, the 49ers beat reporter who works down in San Francisco, he was on that same flight, and he got all the details for us. Okay, I won't say that. He doesn't have all the details. We don't know exactly what was discussed on the flight, but it is very interesting to find out what happened. Essentially, Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and Mike Macdonald spoke for, according to Grant Cohn, upwards of an hour. And Pete Carroll apparently was sitting in the regular business class, while meanwhile John Schneider and Mike Macdonald, they were sitting in the first class section. So that's interesting, right? Pete Carroll a little bit more laid back. He's not trying to spend all his money on the fancy plane tickets. Seahawks head coach and Seahawks GM John Schneider, Mike Macdonald, they were in that first class section. And according to the reports, Pete Carroll, he just walked straight up into the first class section. He just walked straight in there and started talking to John Schneider and Mike Macdonald. And apparently the trio had a conversation for what was around an hour, according to Grant Cohn. Grant Cohn said that Pete was in the first class section and he just didn't come back. He was there for the entire flight, just standing there and talking to these guys for over an hour. That's very interesting, because it reveals a couple of things. First off, it's good to see that Pete Carroll and John Schneider are still on speaking terms. And it's good to see that Pete Carroll and Mike Macdonald are still on speaking terms. It's also just interesting to hear how coaches interact. There are so many interesting things that they could have talked about. And I, for one, would have loved to be a part of that conversation. I would have loved to hear that conversation. What does that even sound like between two NFL coaches? And obviously, maybe Pete's giving Mike some credit. Maybe Mike was asking him for advice. Maybe John was talking to him about draft strategy. Maybe they were just talking about congratulating him on his new job with the Raiders. There are so many things that could have been discussed on that flight. And it's just so cool to think about what could have happened, and just three really, really brilliant football minds. For all we know, Pete and Mike just started having a conversation about defensive schemes that lasted for an hour. We have no idea. Maybe they talked about a player. They could have talked about a player that they have both coached. Maybe a player's been given the Seahawks trouble. There are so many possibilities that we could go down. I'm not going to talk about that the entire time, though, because one thing that they could have been talking about is, of course, the trade rumors that we've been talking about. You know it. Could the Raiders be in on Geno, DK, Lockett, any of the three, etc., all of the above? We've been talking about this for a while on this channel because we keep seeing reports that say X team might be interested. And yeah, we have talked about, could the Raiders be interested in trading for DK Metcalf? Could they be interested in picking up Tyler Lockett if the Seahawks were to release him? Could they even be interested on Geno Smith? They need a quarterback. Or is their plan potentially to reunite Russell Wilson with Pete Carroll and then, again, bring in one of his favorite weapons in either DK and or Tyler Lockett? Those are all possibilities that the Raiders could try to go down this offseason. And I think it's very interesting that we're hearing that the head coach of the Raiders talking to his former co-worker, the general manager of the Seahawks. They could have been talking about all that. They could have been talking about, hey, John, what's it going to take for us to get Tyler? What's it going to take for us to get DK? They could have been talking about, man, I want to coach Tyler again, says Pete. And Mike McDonald says, nah, I think he wants to retire as a Seahawk. And then who knows where that conversation could have gone. Or maybe Pete is saying, we need a quarterback. I don't want to run it back with Gardner Minshew. I would be interested in talking about Geno. Are you guys interested in having that conversation? You never know where that conversation could go, but I'll tell you what. If Pete Carroll and Tom Brady and the Las Vegas Raiders call John Schneider, he's not going to put down the phone. He's at least going to answer the phone and talk about it with them because they do have a relationship. They do have a working relationship. And so, yeah, that's not something that John Schneider's going to laugh in their face about. That's something that I could totally see them potentially having a discussion about. Not saying it's going to happen. Not saying it did happen. It could have happened, and that's very interesting. Or what could have happened was maybe they spent an hour on the plane laughing about how silly we all are for talking about these rumors. Maybe Pete's like, yeah, dude, we're not interested in Geno. We're not interested in DK Metcalf. We're doing things our own way down here. That could have been the situation too, and it could have been just the three of them chuckling about how odd it is that everyone in the media keeps pushing DK to the Raiders, Tyler Lockett to the Raiders, Geno potentially to the Raiders. The media is always going to push that stuff, understandably, because it is an interesting connection. It's a guy that they used to play for who's now the coach in Las Vegas. It's a Las Vegas team that has a ton of holes, and it's a Seahawks team that needs to get under the cap. So it makes sense why those are conversations that are being had by the media. However, it is also something that, look, the likelihood of this happening is still fairly low. And so perhaps Pete and John and Mike were just in there laughing at us for even having these conversations or for having them so frequently, it seems, in the general Seahawks and Las Vegas media. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. A bit of a shorter video, but I wanted to talk about it because it has been a bit of a slow news cycle lately, and I did think this was really interesting to hear that, Pete and Mike and John having this conversation. So thank you, Grant Cohn, for covering that and putting that out there on Twitter for the whole world to see. I love hearing about this. It's kind of the backside of sports that you don't always hear about. You don't always get to know what's going on behind the scenes. And because of Grant Cohn and his little tweets, we found out just a little bit of what might be going on behind the scenes as far as the Seahawks and the Raiders. With that all being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. What do you think they were talking about in this meeting on the flight? And as always, guys, until next time, go Seahawks.